Hello, this is Sue. So this is sort of a part 2 of my writing system. I'm going to show you how I integrate the analog aspects of what I do. There's my little plot box along with the digital aspects. And it took me a while to figure this out about how to do it in a way where it contributes to the process, but I'm not duplicating effort or putting effort where effort is not useful. You know, I don't want to write stuff or come up with all sorts of ideas like just in a notebook, because they'll go to die there. Like, I can't get them out of here. I won't be able to figure out, like, oh, you know, this is supposed to go to chapter 1, but this is supposed to go to chapter 2, and like, you know, it's just gone effectively, as much if it's in paper as if it's like in my unopened computer. So I think I figured it out. We've also got like my quirky keyboard, which is in the other room, and another my mini iPad and keyboard. So we've got this stuff. We've got my plot box. And oh my, what do we do? So I am going to be showing you first, we're going to pull out my computer. I'm going to show you where the final and the real working draft of my document, currently right now working on a new book and called Speakeasy. And I'll show you where that lives. And then I'm going to show you how I use this, what I use my computer for, and then I got this new super cool Supernote Manta. And like, I was just so excited to use this, but then I was trying to figure out how do I integrate this in the process? And I think I figured that out. So let's get going. All right, so here I'm going to try and show you how I do this using a bunch of new filming equipment. So this is going to be fun, but I have created I do most of my like editing and document storage in Scrivener, and this is actually a custom theme of Scrivener, and I'm going to go back to the regular mode. So what I've done is I have created a text document for each plot element according to Derek Murphy's plot outline. So there are 24 chapters, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, a quarter in Act 1, a quarter in Act 3, and Act 2 is the middle half. There are also like the major plot points, like the midpoint, the inciting incident, the resolution, stuff like that. So what I have done, and I'm doing in all of my documents, is I am creating in Scrivener, and I will create a separate video to kind of show you how to do this. Let's zoom in. I've created a separate text document for each of those points. So, you've got Act 1, prologue, really bad day, something peculiar. Right now, like, I haven't started writing in this yet, so there's really nothing but, this brilliant word text, which, does not quite sum up my novel. But so I've got, I could close this. I've got Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. These are all, as you can tell, unpopulated right now. Down here, I've got a separate file called Disordered Scenes, because I've started writing some stuff, but I don't really know where it goes yet. And I started doing this before I started using Victoria Crowder's Zettelkasten system. So that's just all sort of a holding space. What you see here that's colored, okay, you can label things, and we're gonna see if I can zoom down over here without making either of us too sick. Okay, I gotta hold this and move it down here. If I click on label, oops, okay, and zoom, okay, you can see I've got the inciting incident, all of the major plot points labeled by color. And what that means is I can go back here. Oh God, sorry about this. This is all like completely new to me. And even though I haven't written any of this yet, I can see where, what chapters I think the plot points are going to be in. And I can change that later, but at least this gives me a visual layout of like, oh, here is, there's a shocking revelation at the end of Act 1. And that's probably going to be chapter 18. So I'm going to put this down for a moment. And we are going to go back. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about this. So we're going to go back to see the screen. The really neat thing about Scrivener is that you can see everything as if I have to go up to the act, as if it's on index cards. So each one of these is going to be very much like the index card in my Zettelkasten. Okay, and if I really wanted to, I could use the exact same 7001, but I kind of know, because the system that I've set up, one book, this book is actually 7,300 and in the 300s. One of the other books is 7,200. So I know 7301 through 7324 are all of the chapters that I think are going to be in this book. So, if I know which book it is, then I know, I know what the preceding numbers are. Okay, so probably what I'll do is once I write these and title them, I will rename the chapter number, but just sort of maybe tag that afterwards so I know what the function of each of these is. And, going over here in the synopsis, I can summarize the exact same way that I would summarize on my index card exactly what is supposed to be in this chapter. So talking about workflow though, at the moment, what I've been trying to figure out is I've got multiple different methods of working, which I showed you. The creative part, which I often do longhand. I've got my plot box and I've got this. But I want to make sure that everything is coordinated. So these chapters are coordinated with and I will pull this over here, with the chapters in my plot box. Okay, so, if I write something, or have an idea and stick it in here, I'll know that that has to, let's say, chapter 3, grasping at straws. Okay, I know that's going to be here in my document. So ultimately, whatever I have stuck in here should be able to make it into the final document. And I could probably even just use this as a checklist. But let's go back out to show you how I use the analog systems. This is sort of the final destination. This is where, I do editing, or, if I tend to spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos and just being on the computer. So I generally don't want to spend more time sitting here writing. If I feel like it, I will work directly in here. And then, we'll go back to the regular view. I can open up my chapter and let's get rid of this. Just go. This is sort of the home base. This is where the final manuscript will end up. Ultimately, everything needs to correspond to this and be easy to correlate between the various different places that I work. So let me bring you back out. Okay, so generally, if I'm just coming up with ideas, I'm doing it like freehand on paper. And I got this new Supernote Manta, which I was really excited to use, but also trying to figure out how do I integrate this into my system and not just have things in different places. So the first thing I did was I created a sort of a playground for each one of my books. I'm going to use this one even though it's not for the current novel because they're all the same system. This one I actually have some stuff in. So, if I go to brief plan and outline, I was coming up with all of these ideas, all of these questions, and the problem is, well, where do they, how do I even know what's here? How do I know what I need to work on, what chapter things go on? Is this just going to be, the problem with like analog notebooks is that it ends up being as much of a black hole in a way as videos. So, one neat thing I can do here is I could make a star and Supernote will pull this and I can search for all of the places I have put a star. So things I need to take a note of, it'll pull those up. I can also link things together. But what I also decided would be really cool would be, I'm going to bring you out. I have created, that's all well and good for the individual just playgrounds thinking about stuff. But in terms of a Zetelkasten system, I've created a similar one for my actual draft. So the way that I've decided is going to work is this is going to be like the final resting place of anything that I've written or want to use on my Supernote. Oops, sorry about that. That I wanted to that I want to keep and port into the final document. And so rather than having it lost, I've created basically something to represent that chapter on my Supernote. And so this is the draft, Act 1. I've got a card, quote, card for each chapter. Okay, now let's say I go back to, we're just going to use this as an example. See if I have anything in the new book. Brief plan and outline. Okay, so let's say I have, brilliant idea. Okay, and I'm like, this totally, I need to remember this when I'm actually writing. This needs to just get out of this sort of graveyard and go to where I can find it. I'm going to copy that. Okay, I could cut it. I'm just going to copy it. Hopefully, I think that'll work. I'm going to go back into my Zetelkasten chapter and say like, okay, I know this is that has to be in the prologue. That absolutely has to be in the prologue. So I'm going to paste it in here. And so it's there. So like now later on, like maybe 2 days later, when I go to sit down with my plot box and maybe do some more writing, I can go through these cards here and realize, oh, okay, that brilliant idea, I need to go, and before I forget, that has to go in my plot box, because this is going to be like the working repository of my book. This is sort of the central hub. Things will get populated into Scrivener as I write and as they become finalized. Okay, like this brilliant idea, maybe it's not so brilliant, but it's going to go into my prologue box here, okay, when I'm writing. If it really is brilliant and like I'm like, yep, I'm definitely doing this, and when I write it, it ends up into the prologue chapter in Scrivener, then that's good. Okay, but I don't necessarily need that stuff doesn't need to go there first. This is sort of brainstorming, and this page is more permanent than my playground. This is like the best of the brainstorming. This is what I want to work on. This, when I sit down, the writing and the coming up with ideas, that's what like this is for. Okay. So if I feel like writing but don't want to like sit at my computer, or I want to be someplace else, or just want something portable, I generally use my sort of writing dock here. This is my iPad mini and this adorably cute little keyboard. Let me just show you. Unfortunately, I'm just holding my phone now. Look at the back. Oh, it's so cute. But so here is Scrivener on the iPad. This is the iPad mini again. And we'll just go close up on the screen. This is much more like, really just for writing, not for like complex editing. But I go into one really bad day. Okay, and I've like written this here just to show you something really cool. I can go into just sort of no, blank screen, like no file structure, just, really simple writing mode. And there's this typewriting device. So I've just put this all here so I can get to the point where I can show you. Okay, if I like write stuff, now in typewriting mode, it's like using a typewriter. You'll see when I hit enter, my new line is still right at the center of the screen, okay? Whereas if I go out of typewriting mode, I'll type, it keeps going down to the bottom, and like, eventually, I never run out of space, but my new work is way at the bottom of the screen instead of typewriter will just keep it always that middle line in the screen, which is really nice, because not only is it just a little nicer to work in the middle of the screen, but all of the new stuff just quickly disappears, so you're more just in the mode of writing. So, a lot of the time I will write on this. This is like, not so much editing. Like I almost won't even like change spelling mistakes because it's a pain in the butt. I like this keyboard, but it's a little weird, like the right side, it's not set up the way a normal keyboard is. So I end up making mistakes. I haven't really gotten used to it. I don't know if it's so darn cute, but I might try and find a different keyboard. But this lets me just sort of type anywhere, not see all of the chapters I need to work on, not get overwhelmed, just get stuff onto the page. And the benefit of this is that it is at least all saved into Scrivener. And very likely what I would do, because, I would go into disordered scenes, I would create a new text and probably just title it like, either the date or, I might just title it like Morbs goes to get Chinese food, so that I know what it is. Or maybe I'll put that into the synopsis. But basically, I'm just like dumping like a scene, getting a little bit of writing done. It'll all show up. Open. Okay, it's all going to show up under my, in here in disordered scenes, and then later I can cut and paste it into the chapter that I want to actually be working on. So that is my sweet little writing doc. This has been the last segment of this, I think. So to sum up, we've got the brainstorming. We've got the brainstorming in the Manta. Okay, I pull stuff out of there and put it on my plot box, which is currently propping up my phone. And then I will use my plot box in conjunction with writing. And I'll do that either on this or directly, very more likely, maybe 50% directly into Scrivener probably in disordered scenes, and then pull it into the chapter. And thank you very much for listening. I'd be intrigued to hear your opinions on all this. Talk to you later.